All right, here we go. All right, 3:45. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin. We have been closely watching that line of storms approach southeast Louisiana. Still very potent, but thankfully, and so far, most of the southern end of the line has not been as active as what we have seen farther north. Now remember, the high risk of severe weather has been from the North Shore into Mississippi and actually extends into Tennessee, almost to Kentucky. So it is a wide area that is highlighted for a higher risk of severe storms. We've certainly seen more tornado warnings north than we have south. Now, it's not as though we have not seen anything south. Had one in central Louisiana, west central Louisiana, and also one down near Lake Charles, but thankfully those have not since spun back up. So it looks like they might have spun up maybe a tornado. I was waiting to confirm if there was actually one out over Lake Charles, but so far it's been a little bit tamer. Now, not quiet, as you do see a number of severe thunderstorm warnings because of the very strong winds associated with this line. And just looking at radar, notice the intensity of our colorized reflectivity. These are where your more intense storms are. Now, you do see them kind of getting active as they move in from the coast, and they tend to intensify more so, say, north of the 10 and then up towards, say, north of Lafayette, Ville Platte, and as you continue north, maybe toward Natchez, Mississippi. That's where we've seen some of the more intense storms. So certainly something that we'll have to watch very, very closely as these storms continue through the Florida parishes, North Shore, after probably about 6, 7 o'clock tonight. Again, the timing has changed slightly, but more intense storms have been developing along the southern line. So don't want to let your guard down, but it has certainly been more active farther to the north. And hopefully this ends up being just kind of some strong winds, gusty winds that move on through very quickly. And then that is it. But what we'll have to watch for is any kind of rotation along this line. And that's what we saw last week on Tuesday. Line had been fairly quiet as it moved into the area. And then we saw two particular cells that began spinning, and obviously we did have two confirmed tornadoes last week, so we will have to wait and see if that ends up being the case. Now notice our computer model not exactly representing how the structure of this line is. It does have a good idea of the placement, maybe not quite as much of the intensity of the line, and we do kind of see this model almost fluctuate with the intensity as it does move through. So really, more than anything, it's just giving us a decent guidance on the timing of when we're likely to see the line of storms arrive. About 5:15, 5:30 or so through Baton Rouge, so just on our doorstep across our viewing area. After 6 o'clock, we continue to see that line moving across the North Shore, river parishes, and by 7 o'clock, maybe not quite to the metro area just yet, but certainly the bayou parishes, river parishes, and on the North Shore at 7. After 7 to 8, 9 o'clock, those storms rolling through the metro area. By 9, may already be clear of the North Shore, now affecting the Mississippi counties and more south of the city, down toward Grand Isle, northern Plaquemine, St. Bernard, through the 9, 10 o'clock time frame, continuing eastward to where by 11, 11:30, most of those storms look to be gone. I do think by certainly midnight, all of these storms will be gone, and more settled weather moves in right behind it. Now here again, it's kind of a rough idea of the timing. Still off to our west, but moving through to Baton Rouge by about 6. After 6 and through 9 o'clock. So hopefully that's around the time that most folks have already gotten back home. There are several schools that I know canceled any kind of extracurriculars, getting those students and folks back home early. Folks are able to leave work a little early just to be home, and that way you're not on the roads as that line pushes through really the heart of our viewing area, North Shore, river parishes, metro area, bayou parishes, and then it'll continue through the east. So then Plaquemines, Lower Lafourche and Jefferson, St. Bernard, and then maybe kind of around the Slidell area into the Mississippi coast after about 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then continuing through the 11 o'clock time frame, kind of near the mouth of the river, and then moving out of the area altogether. Winds, though, have been a big issue before that line even gets here, and sustained out of the south is sustained at 25 to over 30 miles an hour, and we have seen winds gusting up to almost 50 miles an hour in several locations, or at least closing in on near 50 miles an hour. So the winds so far today have been really the big story the next focus is going to be on that line of severe storms that will approach the area. Something we can look at here is visible satellite. Notice once the storms are clear, they're already starting to get some sunshine over in Lake Charles. So this will be a very fast moving system and then clearing skies overnight tonight. What we can also use visible satellite to do is detect that intensity of the storms. And while, as I was showing you on radar, it certainly looked like the more intensive from Lafayette northward, you do see those towering cumulus kind of developing the last few images here offshore. So the line itself looks like it'll stay pretty healthy as it moves across South Louisiana through the next several hours. So even going into tonight, while some of the models have been indicating maybe some weakening of the southern half of the line, kind of south of the lake, wait to see if that actually happens. Now, the severe risk has kind of shifted a little bit as the line is clearing parts of southwest Louisiana, still under a level 3 across most of the area. North Shore and into Mississippi, still that level 4, with the real risk from the strong winds and then the tornado risk as we continue. And as speaking of the tornado risk, we still find both sides of the lake under that hatched area. Now, if you remember back to yesterday, that hatched area, this is the area where you have the greater chance of the long duration, stronger tornadoes. That was a little bit more south of even the metro area. And now, Storm Prediction Center is basically taking it from the metro area north. So just really the tail end of that area of the highlighted risk for the stronger tornadoes just includes the river parishes and metro area. Last week, that extended well down 2 hours south. Still a threat there, but maybe not quite as far south as we saw last week. The winds by our camera here in the French Quarter have just been going back and forth with the low cloudiness around. For most of the day, it's just been warm, humid, and very windy. That's going to continue until that line moves on through. And with the line, we'll likely see some stronger gusty winds, as that's why we've had the severe thunderstorm warnings issued just to the northwest of Baton Rouge. So that will be probably the primary issue in terms of how many folks see the severe weather. With severe weather outlooks, one thing that's a little bit more confusing is that not everyone will see the severe weather. They're usually a little bit more isolated. Now, with that line, might see a good number of getting into those initial strong gusty winds, which can easily do damage. Sometimes straight line winds will do the damage of an EF 0 or 1. So sometimes that's why when we do get damage from a line of thunderstorms, Weather Service more often than not has to figure out if it's straight line winds or if it was actually a tornado. So we will certainly see the stronger winds with that line, not necessarily tornadoes, but certainly some strong winds, and that may affect a good portion of our area through the later part of this afternoon and evening. Now, the good news is once we get through later tonight, look at the weather tomorrow. Beautiful. We'll see high temperatures staying in the 70s and plenty of sunshine. So nicer weather is on the way. We just have to get through the line of storms, which at the moment is starting to approach or moving through the Lafayette area. Let me zoom back in just before we leave you here on radar, kind of a wider look at radar of where those storms are at the moment. Now approaching Lafayette. Still, the heaviest has been more from Lafayette north, but as I mentioned on satellite, you still see those blossoming thunderstorms where they are growing into the atmosphere. So still intensifying thunderstorms. And as some of those storms kind of ride along this boundary, that's where you can get a little bit of rotation. So that will still very much be a threat through the rest of the late afternoon and evening as the line starts to move into our area, getting very close to Baton Rouge at almost the 4 o'clock hour. And again, after about 6 and toward 9 o'clock, we will see it really traversing the entirety of our viewing area. We're going to do another update on WWL at 4 o'clock, another one at 4:30, and of course a complete look at our forecast on Eyewitness News at 5 and 6. For now, I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin.